In Amish kitchens across Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and other settlements throughout North America, beef and noodles serves as both a Sunday dinner centerpiece and a practical solution for feeding large families on modest budgets. The dish's enduring popularity within these communities stems not from elaborate techniques or exotic ingredients, but from a deep understanding of how to coax maximum flavor and nutrition from the simplest components available on the farm. The foundation of authentic Amish beef and noodles begins with the selection of meat, and here the community's approach differs markedly from contemporary cooking trends. Rather than seeking out expensive prime cuts, Amish cooks have mastered the art of transforming tougher, more economical portions of beef into tender, flavorful protein through patient cooking methods that their ancestors developed out of both necessity and wisdom. Chuck roast, bottom round, or even soup bones with attached meat become the starting point for this culinary transformation. The process typically begins early in the morning, as Amish families understand that time itself is an ingredient in this dish. A substantial piece of beef, often weighing 3 to 5 pounds depending on family size, is placed in a large, heavy-bottomed pot along with enough cold water to cover the meat completely. This initial step demonstrates the Amish commitment to extracting every bit of nutritional value and flavor from their ingredients, as the cold water start allows proteins to slowly release into the cooking liquid, creating a rich foundation for the eventual broth. Unlike modern cooking methods that might rely on high heat for quick results, the Amish approach embraces the gentle, sustained cooking that was necessary in the days before gas and electric stoves. The pot is brought to a very gentle simmer over moderate heat, with careful attention paid to maintaining just the barest bubble action on the surface of the water. This restrained temperature prevents the proteins from toughening and ensures that the collagen in the tougher cuts has ample time to break down into gelatin, which will later provide body and richness to the finished dish. During these initial hours of cooking, the meat is typically accompanied by a minimal selection of aromatics that reflect both the Amish commitment to simplicity and their understanding of flavor building. A whole onion, perhaps quartered but often left whole and simply pierced with a few cloves, joins the beef in its long, slow transformation. Bay leaves, when available, might be added along with a generous pinch of salt and some whole peppercorns, but the seasoning remains deliberately restrained at this stage. The cooking liquid gradually transforms as hours pass, developing a deep amber color and rich aroma that speaks to the thorough extraction of flavor from both meat and bones. Amish cooks test for doneness not with thermometers or timers, but through the tactile knowledge passed down through generations. The meat is ready when it yields completely to the gentle pressure of a fork, often after 4 to 6 hours of patient simmering, though the exact timing depends on the specific cut and size of the meat. Once the beef reaches this state of perfect tenderness, it is carefully removed from the cooking liquid and set aside to cool slightly. This step requires some finesse, as the meat has become so tender that it threatens to fall apart at the slightest rough handling. Many Amish cooks use 2 large spoons or wooden paddles to lift the meat, supporting it completely to prevent losing precious portions to the cooking pot. The cooking liquid, now transformed into a rich, gelatinous broth, represents liquid gold in the Amish kitchen. Nothing is wasted, and this flavorful base will become the foundation for the noodles and the final sauce that brings the entire dish together. The broth is typically strained through cheesecloth or a fine mesh strainer to remove any small bone fragments, spent aromatics, and other solids, leaving behind a clear, intensely flavored liquid. While the beef cools enough to handle safely, attention turns to the noodles, and here again the Amish approach demonstrates their commitment to making everything from scratch using techniques that prioritize both economy and flavor. Rather than purchasing commercial pasta, Amish families typically make their own egg noodles using a simple combination of flour, eggs, and a small amount of salt. The ratio is rarely written down, but rather learned through observation and practice, with experienced cooks able to judge proper consistency through feel and appearance. The noodle dough is mixed by hand in large wooden bowls that have often served the same families for decades. The technique involves creating a well in the center of the flour, adding beaten eggs and salt, and gradually incorporating the flour from the outside edges until a cohesive dough forms. The mixing process is deliberately gentle, as overworking the dough would develop too much gluten and result in tough noodles. After a brief rest period that allows the gluten to relax, the dough is rolled out on floored wooden surfaces using heavy rolling pins, often handcrafted by the men in the community. The dough is rolled quite thin, approximately 1/8 of an inch, and then allowed to dry slightly before cutting. This drying step is crucial as it prevents the noodles from sticking together during the cutting process and helps them maintain their individual identity when cooked. The cutting of the noodles represents another opportunity for the Amish commitment to uniformity and precision to shine through. Using sharp knives and steady hands, the dough is cut into strips typically about 1/2 an inch wide and 3 to 4 inches long. These dimensions are not arbitrary, but rather represent generations of refinement, creating noodles that cook evenly and provide the ideal proportion of pasta to sauce in each bite. While some families cut their noodles immediately after rolling, others prefer to let the dough sheets dry for 30 minutes to an hour, which makes cutting easier and produces noodles that hold their shape better during cooking. The cut noodles are often arranged on clean kitchen towels, ensuring they do not stick together and may be used immediately or dried further for storage. The cooking of these handmade noodles requires the same careful attention that characterizes every aspect of Amish beef and noodles preparation. The reserved beef broth is brought to a rolling boil in the same pot used to cook the meat, ensuring that any residual flavors clinging to the pot contribute to the final dish. The noodles are added to the boiling broth gradually, stirred gently to prevent sticking, and cooked just until tender, typically 8 to 12 minutes depending on their thickness. During the noodle cooking process, the beef, now cool enough to handle, is carefully shredded or cut into bite-sized pieces. The Amish prefer to shred the meat along its natural grain boundaries, creating irregular pieces that vary in size but share a tender, easily chewable texture. Any remaining fat or gristle is removed, but the Amish wastes nothing that can contribute to the dish's richness. The final assembly of the dish represents the culmination of hours of patient work and demonstrates the Amish understanding of how individual components come together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. The shredded beef is returned to the pot with the cooked noodles and their cooking liquid, creating a harmonious mixture where each element maintains its distinct character while contributing to the overall experience. At this stage, many Amish cooks add a thickening element to create a more substantial sauce that coats the noodles and helps bind the dish together. This might take the form of a simple flour and water slurry added gradually while stirring to prevent lumps, or sometimes a mixture of flour and butter worked together to create what French chefs would recognize as a beurre manière. The thickening is done gradually and judiciously, as the goal is not to create a heavy, gluey sauce, but rather to give the cooking liquid enough body to cling to the noodles and meat. Seasoning adjustments represent the final crucial step in the preparation process, and here the Amish cook's experienced palate comes into play. Salt and pepper are added carefully, with frequent tasting to achieve the proper balance. Some families add a touch of dried herbs, perhaps thyme or sage from their own gardens, while others prefer to let the pure flavors of beef and noodles speak for themselves. A few families might include a splash of apple cider vinegar, which adds a subtle brightness that helps balance the rich, hearty flavors of the dish. The economic advantages of this traditional approach to beef and noodles cannot be overstated, particularly in communities where large families are common and budgets must stretch to accommodate many mouths. By utilizing less expensive cuts of meat and transforming them through slow cooking, Amish families can create satisfying, protein-rich meals for a fraction of the cost of more conventional approaches. The homemade meals created from basic pantry staples cost mere pennies per serving compared to commercial pasta, while providing superior flavor and texture. The communal aspects of beef and noodles preparation also contributes to its economy within Amish communities. Large batches are often prepared for church gatherings, barn raisings, and other community events, allowing families to pool resources and labor while creating substantial quantities of food. These communal cooking sessions also serve as opportunities for younger family members to learn the techniques and traditions associated with the dish, ensuring its continuation across generations. Storage and preservation methods developed by the Amish further extend the economic benefits of beef and noodles. The dish keeps well for several days under refrigeration and actually improves in flavor as the components have time to meld together. Portions can be frozen for later use, providing quick meal options during busy periods. Some families prepare large batches specifically for preservation, creating a form of homemade convenience food that far surpasses anything available commercially. The nutritional profile of traditional Amish beef and noodles reflects the community's intuitive understanding of balanced nutrition developed through generations of practical experience.